Ooh, I'm getting the goosebumps.
Serious goosebumps. Yeah.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition special Between a Pot and a Hard Place. I'm Stephen Colton.
And as always, I am Chris Kirkpatrick.
And yeah, so I've wanted to do this when I first heard that Clerks III was happening. And I know you were excited about it. And then I went to see, we actually watched the movie at the same time on the same day, but in different time zones.
We did.
So
yeah, it was crazy.
Both watched it at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, but it was a different 7 p.m. I had those 3 hours. Well, I guess like 5.5 hours, however long the difference was, of knowing what happens before you did. And I was like, ha ha ha.
I'm so thankful you didn't spoil it for me either. That was great.
Yeah, and I definitely, we're going to be talking about some details of the movie on this, obviously, and I don't want to give away the heavy spoilers. I don't want to give away the major like moments, but we can talk about some of the smaller, kind of scenes and whatnot, including two characters that we were thrilled to see back in this world again. And that's, of course, Veronica and the Chulis guy, which I'm kind of upset he never got a real name. But they're both here today with us. We're going to go jump right into it. Welcome Scott Schiaffo and Marilyn Ghigliotti to the show.
Hello.
Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, guys.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, yeah. We're really happy to have you guys both back here on the show.
Yeah.
And, Stephen and I, we just recently watched Clerks 3 here on Tuesday and just really loved it. And so, yeah, we're number one. It was great seeing both of you on the screen. I had like a little fan moment there. And so, but yeah, it's great that you guys have taken some time just to come and join us here and talk a little bit about kind of your involvement with the movie and everything. So yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that's, I've been reading reviews for Clerks 3 so much, and Kevin retweeting and saying, go watch Clerks 3. And actually, it's really cool because Chris earlier sent me a message on Facebook, said, hey, I tweeted, hey, the Clerks 3 was great to Kevin, and Kevin retweeted it. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's so cool. So that was awesome. See, Kevin has liked a lot of my tweets, but he's never retweeted anything I've said, so you should feel special.
I do. I feel very special. I had really wanted to know from both you, Marilyn and Scott, about how did you guys first get involved with Kevin Smith and the Clerks movie, back in the 90s.
Back in the OG days?
Yeah.
That's how we did it in the 90s, son.
So essentially, both Brian and I, we were doing the community theater circuit in LA, in New Jersey. And I was doing a show in Red Bank at the time and found out about the auditions. And so went to the audition, did a monologue, and Kevin pretty much called me within days. It might have even been the next day. I don't remember very well, but yeah, he had me read the script, make sure I was comfy with the dialogue.
Right.
And I was reading it and laughing myself. So I was totally in as soon as I read it.
That's cool. So it sounded like he knew you were Veronica, like right from the very beginning.
Yeah. And so the story that I hear is that I just really freaked them out that I could actually get emotional for a scene, because it was a dramatic scene that I did. And I mean, I say this, and you can actually see the audition on the 10th anniversary DVD. And I always say that I've done that scene and that monologue much better. And it's not that I'm complaining, but as an actor, don't we all criticize what we do?
Of course.
Yeah. I do remember watching those auditions. I had the Clerks 10th anniversary, and then I got the Blu-ray, and then so I'm watching it, and I always remember that because Kevin's talking about it in the Snowball Effect documentary. He's like, "We all thought it was so fucked up she could cry like that," and so that sticks with me every time I watch. Like I'm like, she cried that time. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
yeah, well. I cried that time, but boy, do I cry this time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I saw an ad. I'm an hour and a half away from those guys down there. I'm up in North Jersey near the bridge and tunnel.
Oh, nice.
And, yeah, before before cell phones and you know, the internet, it was trade papers. So Kevin put an ad in actually one of my local papers in the classified, which I would check that as well as backstage and things of that nature. And back then, somebody filming a movie in New Jersey wasn't that common. So I said, I'm definitely getting myself to this audition. It was about an hour and a half away, but I'm really glad I did. And just like Marilyn, whenever I think I did really well, the phone doesn't ring. And then when I think I didn't do all that well, I get a call back. And luckily I got a call back. It was, for me, it wasn't as fast as Marilyn. It was about a week or so, because I'm thinking I'm not going to hear from those people. And then bam, they're like, yeah, we liked what you did. We want you to come and read from the script now. So yeah, it was super exciting.
That's cool. I wanted to ask, you know, how was it like working both with Kevin Smith as well as with the rest of the cast?
Initially, are we talking old days, new days?
Well, a little bit of both. I think it's kind of starting with the old days, and you can also talk about the new days if you want to as well.
I'll let it's pretty ladies first.
Thank you. You know, the thing is that for my scenes, it was essentially Brian and individually, and then Jeff individually. There really wasn't anybody else other than, you know, when I came in with the fire extinguisher. Yeah. I always like to say that we were all in the same boat together, meaning that we were all learning, because this was all our first experience being on a movie set. You know, and definitely not your typical movie set as far as like what most people would think. This was all people learning how to make a movie and independently creating something that we had no idea what we were doing or how it would actually become what it is now.
Yeah, you know, this sounds like after the fact, like maybe it's BS, but it's not. When I got to talk to Kevin, once I was given the role and I got to have some discussions with him, I thought to myself, because I was older than I was pushing 30. They were all in their early 20s. And that doesn't sound like much now, but somebody in their early 20s, somebody 30, and those are years, that's a big difference.
Right.
But I thought, wow, this guy he has such a command of language. Just speaking with him, his vocabulary was so rich and he was funny and so driven. I said, you know, we're in great hands. I know we're in great hands. And I don't know, Marilyn, I guess you maybe did get a whole script. I only ever got the Chuli's scene. That's all I ever knew until I saw the finished film.
I did get the whole script. Kevin wanted me to meet him at the convenience store, so I got to see where we were going to be shooting. And he told me pretty much, I think I'm trying to recall, isn't so great these days, but trying to tell me like what it was all about, and just wanted to make sure that I was comfortable with the dialogue as to how it integrates itself into her character. So he gave me the whole script to read just to really get I guess an idea of like where this is all going, rather than just giving me my scenes and thinking it's like, what the fuck? So
So this is Corey, Chris's brother. Now Scott is still 30 and Kevin is 51.
Right.
So that gives you an idea how old I am. This is all just for men.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and that's what Truly's Gum does for you. And you can get Truly's Gum now. Yeah, they sell it.
Well, you know, I'm going to say that I've been the senior citizen of the group since the beginning.
I'd never tell on a woman. I mean, look at her. She looks fantastic. I'd never tell on her age. So I go with my story, which is out of the core cast, I was like the slightly, the older guy. But yeah, you know, when you speak of Chuli's as the brand, I feel like I got really, really, really lucky, because he since doing the third one, he's made the Chuli's thing a big deal. So I'm not on the poster, but right behind the guys is the big Chuli's placard. And that, that makes me feel so good, because it's like, it doesn't have to be me. It's the character. And people who really know the movie, like, oh, Julie, it's like right behind them. I was like, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. It was so exciting to see that. So I got a little bonus with that. But yeah, now, hey, you guys have seen the movie. And how about the heavy lifting this woman does?
Oh, she I really felt, Marilyn, like you really stepped up, like the emotional impact. I mean, there are plenty of emotional moments in Clerks 3, but I feel like when you came in, you really hit it out of the park. So I really loved that. How did you kind of prepare for that scene or that time?
I mean, up until the day of, it was just memorization. And one thing that helps me in memorization is just kind of like, okay, why are these lines being said? What's going on with her? What are her feelings and all that kind of stuff. But the day of, I got up and I immediately was just like, all thought process of being Veronica. And I started jotting down, and I wish I had actually jotted it down on not just some scrap piece of paper, but I started writing. It's like her thoughts, what's going on, and just really being in her head. Because I was really putting a lot of pressure on myself that day. I really, really wanted to get this right for me, and to be able to show how I've grown since the original. And so I went onto set just really in that mindset of this is what's happening, this is what's going on. And and that was pretty much at the end of the day that we did it. Because I forget what time I actually went in, and we were doing all the scenes that were imitating the past, or the original, I should say. And that's another thing that I was doing. Is like I downloaded the scene on the counter with Jeff. I downloaded that, and I was sitting down and just really watching and making sure that I was getting all the moves just right and just the same. And when I got onto set is when they actually had the scene as well. And so they took a photo out and make sure that we were positioned in the same position of the original. But I knew the moves. I knew the moves.
I mean, you almost had to do a double take watching those scenes. You're like, wait, is this the old clip or is this
right? Right.
Well, thank you. It's like, yeah, I've put on a few pounds since then, because I do have a thyroid condition. But yeah, no, it's funny because when I got back to my regular day-to-day out here in California, and people would ask me, so how'd it go? The first thing that I would say is like, I fucking killed it. Because I just really knew. And the thing is, it's like, I did not know what I know now, because when we did the Stash event anniversary a few months back, and we were doing Q&As in the theaters individually, in groups. And so it was Brian, Jeff, and Scott. We were kind of on hold before we were to go out. And we just kind of started talking back there. And Kevin said to me, it's like, Marilyn, your scene doesn't really move the story along. And so it's like it was almost cut, but we couldn't cut it because you just really did a phenomenal scene. And it's funny because even though I heard that and I was like, oh, wow, okay. Hearing it again when we did the whole H panel in San Diego, and he said it again, but it's like there was a different way that he kind of said it. And I was like, and as I'm sitting there, and I might have looked very pensive and all that kind of stuff because it's like I was taking in how he was saying. It's like I could have been cut. I mean, and not necessarily cut from the whole thing, because there still would have been the recreations, and not even the two different scenes. It would have been the part of the scene that I think everybody especially loves. Trying not to give anything away.
Right.
And so I was like sitting there in pensive thought, and I was like, oh man, I almost wasn't in, like, oh wow. But then now come touring the tour and listening to Kevin in the back before he introduced us out on the stage, that, and I don't think I'm mistaken, but I think they even had thought about cutting that scene even before I did it.
Oh no.
So I'm glad I got to do it, and I'm
Yeah.
glad I got to show what I was capable of, and that it wasn't cut. Because even though it may not move the story along, and a lot of people that I've explained this to beg to differ on that, I feel it gives a small little inkling as to what Veronica has been doing for the past 20 some odd years. Because I know a lot of people have individually messaged me, wondering, it's like, well, what has she been doing all these years? And I'm not the writer, so I can't even answer that. but yeah, I'm ecstatic that I was not cut.
Yes. Well,
I do agree. I agree with the comment
absolutely.
there. Clerks 3 is not Clerks 3 without Marilyn. Because
Thank you.
The relationship with the characters in the first movie really pushed Dante in a different direction. When that all happened, he's like, wait a minute, what am I going to do now? And then, of course, that leads to Clerks 2, and then he has a whole different life. But I think she was a big part of that, of the character of Dante. Like, she made him what he was, or at least tried to better him. And I think without that little moment, then I don't think they could have really, I don't think the story would have been as impactful after, for me at least.
Some quick tidbit. The panel Marilyn's talking about, the San Diego Comic-Con Hall H panel, is filmed beautifully in HD and very easy to find on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You got to see the panel. Marilyn's, everybody's on the panel. Kevin explains the story about why the scene couldn't be cut. It's a beautiful, beautiful panel, and it's easy to find on YouTube. So check it out. And there's a lot of interesting information about where View Askew may go from here, but they talk a lot about how it didn't move. As far as the narrative, it didn't move it along, but it's, there's a certain amount of fan service involved now in what he does.
Of course.
And that was the ultimate, because everybody was telling me in the inside circle, like O'Halloran pulled me aside. He's like, well, you see what Marilyn did, man. We all support one another. So I'm sure I knew it would be good either way. But when I saw it in the theater my jaw was on the floor.
Oh yeah.
It's literally, it's pure pathos, no acting, if you will. Like, it's so real that it's all pathos. And I was just like, wow, man. Like, you can't even put that on the page, if you know what I mean. The emotion that's coming out of that.
Thank you.
See, the Chulies guy thing, I'm thankful for it. Very thankful, because he's always written very funny things for me. And it's a really great gag, but it's kind of a gag. It's an actor's gag, which I love. Every actor wants to make fun of actors that take themselves too seriously. And that's what he turned the Chulies guy into, which was great. Yeah. But that was real pathos in action, so I'm so happy for her. I mean, I know her how many years, but I'm just so happy for her. She deserves that.
Thank you. Thank
Absolutely. You. Scott, I wonder. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say that because when it came to that outdoor scene, I wasn't quite sure if they were going to be doing my footage first, or if they were going to be doing Brian's. And so I was off preparing as they were setting things up. And so it turns out that first we were doing Brian's. So I was like, all right, keep what you've got going on. Don't let it go. And so once we were done with him, and this identity was mine, and so they had to do a setup again. So I kind of went off, still kind of keeping myself in preparation. And after we were done, once they yelled cut, and then I was like done. The waterworks started even worse than they were. And as Brian and I were walking back to the wagons, he was just like, "Oh my God, Marilyn, you really didn't have to do that for me." I'm like, "Brian, I was there. I was not going to let it go, because I didn't want to have to work myself back up to that spot again." So I kept it. And if anything, like it just helps both of us, it was a rehearsal for me. And then, so yeah.
Hey, did you, now we don't want to give this away. I'm trying to figure out how I want to ask you, because I was looking at the script. You improvised something really hilarious, didn't you? With the car scene? Because I don't think it's in, and I don't want to say it. What do you suggest? You suggest something to Dante?
Oh,
I didn't see that in the script because I read it.
Well, okay, so no, not really.
Okay.
Kevin was off, saying it's like, say this, say that, and there were a few different takes that I certainly hope make it into the DVD, kind of cut scenes and stuff like that, because it's funny.
So the scene though between you and Dante was really in the script, or was that something that you had made up? Okay.
Yeah, that was really in the script. It was just the line.
Yeah, there was one line that's hilarious
at the very end. Yeah,
and maybe even a little, slightly. I don't want to say out of character for Veronica, but it's like a little shocker, which is pretty cool. And the View Askew audience loves that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I know the theater where I was at, like they erupted. It was like, oh yeah, like over that little, that same line, that same. I don't even want to say too much either, because you can't say too much.
I know. It's funny how you try to explain something without saying it. It's kind of like what's that game?
Catchphrase.
Password or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, it's like a party game. We're all losing a little bit. I really do appreciate you guys, being candid with us, and at the same time, trying to protect people from spoilers. And I certainly respect that. We know that some things are going to come out as we have these conversations, but at the same time, thank you guys just for being open and a part of this process with us. So
no, thank you. This is all about. We are so happy that the hardcore fans are really embracing it, and it's really connecting in far beyond what I anticipated. And I anticipated very good things, but this is almost as big a whirlwind as the first one was, in the sense of like the wow factor, like to be trending in this day and age with something that's a sequel from 30 years ago.
Right.
Right.
What a blessing. What an amazing blessing. But at the same time, it makes sense. There's something about the passing of time that gives it a real a nostalgic feel, but now you got something new.
I agree.
Exactly.
Did either of you guys think when you were filming this 30 years ago that you'd be back in the same roles here in 2022?
A Healthier Kirk, the lung. Healthier Kirk, if you see the new movie, you'll find out all about what the lung was, because part of the gag in the new movie is it discusses what the original lung was in the original movie. So I don't know I want to say much else, because it's pretty funny.
Yeah,
it is a pretty funny part.
But yeah, no, to answer your question though, there's no way that we could have predicted all this again so many years later. Couldn't have predicted the second one, definitely couldn't have predicted the third. Now as far as the fourth, Kevin is saying, sure, why not?
Yeah.
And I know some people are thinking, it's like, how? And
I've
he's
had my
like,
questions.
have you not
Right.
watched? Have you not been watching what's going on in there? And saying that without giving anything away.
Yep, makes sense. That was my first thought too. I was like, "There's no way there's going to be a Clerks 4." And even Scott was like, "You never know, you know, like give me these little things to think about." And I was like, "Yeah, that's true. That is very true."
Yeah.
But it also feels like they can go in another direction too. Like, you know, Elias is the new Dante. Well, not the new Dante, not that he's replaced or I'm gonna shut up right now because I'm starting to dive into this direction.
Well,
I'm just like, let me just.
I do think he may be tackling a Mallrats sequel before. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
I
you got to
think
put a
so. I think
little
that's what he's
in
mentioned.
there. But I think for the very fact that the Viewers universe has grown with us, aged with us, brought along another generation or two, even that makes all these things very open for possibilities. You know, because we do live in a completely different world now, entertainment-wise, than we did in '93. In '93, there were movies on the screen. There was cable TV. There was VHS. There was records. You actually bought records. You know, everything's a service now. Everything's a streaming service, or you know, people are pirating things left and right. So a movie has to be an event now. Like so Kevin went back to the old time roadshow, and he was very successful with that with the reboot. And this is crazy successful now with Clerks 3. You know, so he's once again almost breaking new ground. Or he's bringing back a tradition that stopped long ago.
And that's the thing too with movies. You know, in the last 2 years, you know, theater going has changed dramatically. And they're starting to go. People are starting to go back to theaters, but it's just not quite the same level. So that kind of way to approach releasing a film, I think, is great. I was going to say something else too, and I forgot. But yeah, I mean, I love the way they're doing it. I do. The only bummer is, of course, I don't live in a big enough city to go. I think I'm 2 or 3 hours away from the closest roadshow date. But the Fathom event screenings have been amazing, and that just shows how great it was. And I just remember what I was going to address. They go on the Fathom events from having a 2-day release and that's it to now like basically 2 weeks. So 12 days, 12 to 11 days, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was originally supposed to be the 13th and the 15th, which was Tuesday and a Thursday. Then they extended it to the 18th, you know, consecutively. And I was only just yesterday that I realized it's like, oh, wow, this is actually going on a bit further. So I guess it's doing very well.
Yeah.
But, and the reason why the roadshow, and this is all stuff that I've kind of heard secondhand and mentioned, is that when there is a regular release, it's like so much money is spent on marketing that a low budget film, it kind of makes it difficult to have profit. And it's like, if you're going to make movies, it's got to be profitable. We all realize that because that's the only way that you're going to continue to be making more films. And so doing the roadshow allowed it to then be profitable without it being an expense of marketing it. And I can only imagine that, you know, because of that and because so many people were just really asking for it, that they just kept extending it and extending it. So that's a plus for us. And who knows, maybe that's going to kind of change things even further down the road for other films.
This Corey here, he says, you know, even the Fathom events had sold out shows because they had to go to a second theater to even get in. So that's cool to hear. Actually, it really is.
Yeah. I do know, and I've heard some people say that even the Fathom events was a little bit difficult for them to kind of get to some of them. So I'm hoping though that now with the opening more theaters and that many of them are able to go, and I'm shocked at how many of the fans have actually already seen it 3 and 4 times.
Right, that's crazy. Well, and so it's
the problem. I mean, my brain is turning to mush as I'm getting older too. I've only seen it once or twice, or maybe 3 times now, and it's every time it feels new to me. There's so much in it.
Yeah,
you know.
The thing, you know, I have seen it quite a few times already. and I still catch something new in it. And the thing is, too, it's like, because there's so many amazing jokes that people are actually getting, they're losing other jokes that are just right on top of it. So it's like you almost have to watch it over again to catch the jokes that you didn't hear.
Absolutely. I've always felt like it's a hallmark of a good movie that you could watch it multiple times and it still feels fresh and new and exciting. And that clearly is something that Clerks 3 is showing that it's doing.
Oh,
I
yeah.
really wondered for the two of you, what do you think it is about Clerks, both the old and the new, that has made it such a cult classic and has kind of earned it this following that it has?
My lady.
It's definitely one word: relatable. That's it.
Yeah, you really can't. Everybody at one point in their life, almost everybody has a job they hate, dealing with the public. Doesn't have to be retail, you know, and that's what I think does make it so super relatable. And the fact that Kevin was a blue collar guy, educated, intelligent, but, you know, literally did work in that store in the day and shot the movie at night. You know, the success story of the film became its own almost celebrity. Like the film is the celebrity, not any one particular character or actor, although Jay and Bob obviously are the breakout stars. But the story of how the film was made became almost its own character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love watching the documentaries making of just as much as the actual films, because I'm fascinated on how things come together. And then I've just started trying to get into writing. Like, let me see if I can do this. It's like the whole Kevin Smith thing. Like, I can do that. Counts as a movie. I can do that. Kind of circling back. And I'm just like so thankful to even have seen any of these films and to have that inspiration to do it.
Yeah, I really do think that that's probably something that I think that maybe even Kevin hadn't realized, is how much people admire him and look up to him as, hey, if he could do it and see where he is now, maybe I can do that too, you know? So I think that's cool. I'm going to share a story. When I saw the movie on Tuesday, the credits started to roll and it's like, oh, this is not an MCU movie. Right. I don't need to stay through the credits because there will not be an end credit scene. And so my brother and I we had walked out of the theater. We were ready to go out the doors. And literally, as we were going out the doors, we hear Kevin Smith's voice on the screen. And I'm like, oh shit, he's talking about the movie. And we turned around and ran back inside just in time for him to explain about how, you know, he had worked at the Quick Stop and how he had, you know, hated hated to be there and really had said that, you know, that job would be fantastic if it wasn't for the customers.
Yeah.
And,
ever, right?
Yeah. But I had loved his line. He said, you know, this job was what it was because of the customers.
Yeah.
For me, that was a really powerful moment. And I wish I had been given a heads up to know that it was there. I wouldn't have been so quick.
Well, and to give a heads up to anyone who might be listening as well, because there is kind of a behind the scenes Q&A between Kevin, Brian, Jeff, and Rosario, which I didn't even know about. So yeah, just stay through the credits and stay after that.
Yes.
Yeah. When I first saw that coming up, like I learned a lesson a while back. If you're sitting in a theater and the lights don't come on, don't leave yet. Because generally, like there's something left to see. They don't keep the lights on just for credits. When I heard Kevin's voice, I'm like, oh, he's coming to tell us the ending wasn't the real ending. I was like, oh, yay. And then, of course, that didn't happen. But, you know. But it's so good. I mean, the ending, it really hits me. Like, it hits everybody. You don't really see it coming, but that's all you can really say without giving anything at all away.
It's a punch in the gut.
It really is the punch in the gut. But I think that it needed to have that emotional impact, right? Yeah. I mean, I know that I left the theater and I came home and I told my wife about it. I told my kids about it because it had really registered and resonated.
Do you mean you gave your wife spoilers?
We have that kind of relationship. I asked her if she wanted spoilers, and she said She said, "Give them to me," you know, and I give my wife what she wants. Yeah, she gave me permission. But yeah, it was one of those things where I immediately felt like I had to go and talk about it. And again, it just really, I think it delivered on the impact that it promised. So often we watch movies or see television shows, and there is so much buildup and promise, and there's no payoff. You know what I mean? And this movie, I think, does the opposite. It almost under promises and over delivers, and I mean that to be the compliment that it's meant to be.
Absolutely.
It really did hit. I know that Kevin Smith, a lot of what he does is autobiographical. We talked about, you know, his history with the quick stop and working blue collar. How important do you guys feel like the autobiographical elements are to his storytelling?
Go ahead.
I thought, you know, he's got such a body of work now that there's the View Askew universe, which is based in Kevin's real life, where all those characters overlap for the first 3 movies, and then they overlap again in Strike Back, and then, of course, in the reboot. But then, you know, you've got things like Jersey Girl, which he's still talking about himself there, really. Red State, which Red State, that's a cinematic punch in the face. I thought that film he was trying to reinvent himself for years in a lot of ways. And when I saw that, I thought, holy shit, this is a new Kevin Smith. This is a drama between the eyes. Riveting. I thought it was amazing. And I thought, well, we're going to get a string of dramas from him now. And then Cop Out and Bruce Willis sort of knocked him down a bunch of pegs very sadly. But thankfully, he knocked him out of the box completely. But I think the body of work that pertains to his personal life are the films that resonate the most, probably for that reason.
You know, they say write what you know.
Yeah.
So why can't it pertain to film as well? I mean, and it's not like it has to be completely verbatim what your life is. It's like you take those bits and you kind of work around those and make them something even more extraordinary. And sometimes even life on its own is extraordinary that you don't have to embellish it.
Right.
But it's funny because some of my dialogue kind of pertains to dialogue that we had. Not all of it, just like very little tiny bits of it that I expressed. Let's carefully think about how we put that. But something that I had mentioned, and not in any way mean or did I mean it derogatorily or not? But I always felt like, was he insulted by that? It's like I didn't mean it to be an insulting remark. It's just what I thought that definition of that was. And years later, I come to find out, you know, without being able to give away exactly, but it's like I come to find out, it's like, all right, yeah, my definition was right. So, but I still hope that it was him joking in the response to that versus being insulted. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And was that confusing in any way?
Not really. I think I knew exactly what you're talking about.
I followed it. Yeah. I know that Kevin Smith personally has over the years dealt with some health issues, and so again, not to get too spoilery, but I do feel like it was interesting knowing his personal battle with his health and the things that he's done to deal with that and seeing the influence of that kind of trickle directly into his storytelling. I thought that was really important.
Well,
I think we can, yeah.
Randall's health mishap is not a spoiler at all. I think that's actually in the description of the movie. So that's not giving away anything.
Okay.
And that's Kevin outright, you know, exercising his own heart issue through a character now.
Right, and that's what I was gonna say. I mean, in the trailers, we see that Randall has this heart attack and stuff, and in the movie, because Kevin talked about his heart attack so much that I'm glad. I'm not saying like, "Hal, shut up about your heart attack already. It's been 4 years," but you know, he talked about it so much that I knew the doctor's name, I knew this, and when they like in the movie, I'm like, "That's the real doctor's name. This is the," and I recognize these just simple names because of how much I listened to him tell those stories.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's here's a funny little story, because it was in New York at the Beacon Theater, and there was this. How old was he, Scott? 12?
Was he that young?
I'm either thinking 10 or 12, so young.
Oh gosh, I'm off on that.
This kid was like a mini version of Kevin Smith.
Oh, wow.
So well spoken. He had us with our jaws on the floor. But he followed Kevin everything. And it was very funny because Kevin would reiterate a story. It's like, "Oh yeah, you said that before." And so as you're saying, it's like Kevin he tells his stories quite often, and it's only because, well, a lot of people ask the same questions even almost 30 years later, so it's inevitable that it's going to come up, but it was, this little kid was amazing.
I'm confusing what. Yeah, no, now I know what you're talking about. I thought you were referencing the young man who came up on stage and was very emotional.
Oh no.
Was in recovery and we hugged him. Yeah, no, that was a different story altogether.
I'm talking about Max.
Yeah. Well, you know, Kevin's Q&A, and when he goes on the road show, I don't want to say they're bits, but he does create material that he will use from town to town. It can't be brand new, fresh every town, and there's no need for that because a lot of it is important to reiterate in the same way.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's kind of like seeing him do, you know, you get the Q&A and you get the movie, and it's like him doing stand-up at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm really glad that you had shared that story of the boy. I'm sure that you guys have a lot of interesting experiences in doing these panels and everything else. How do you guys handle that? I mean, do you enjoy the questioning, or do you ever get tired of hearing the same questions? Like when people bring up the number 37 or lasagna or chewing gum. I mean, does that ever get old for you guys?
Well, what I will say is that if we're in a room with Kevin, there are not very many questions answered by anybody other than Kevin. Now, Brian being the second most talkative person, so there's those two. But as far as, like, you know, the 37 and all that kind of stuff, look, I don't care. However, in saying that, there are ways to say it and say many of the other things without being crude. And so that's what I certainly hope that happens most of the time. Does it happen on occasion where people kind of cross that line? Absolutely. Because there are some coolest people out there.
Yeah, none of that gets old for me because I can totally identify with how much it means to them. Listen, Marilyn and I are fortunate. We're in the business, we're actors, but that doesn't mean we're not fans too. I think all actors and musicians start out fans. I've been, you know, that's like me meeting Mickey Rourke. I would probably say something to him that he's heard 1,000 times, you know, but so I get it. And I try to be as gracious as possible with those people because they feel like they're saying something really fun and cute, not realizing you heard it 30 times earlier, but you don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yeah.
You know, you want to be like fun with it. You know how many times Brian hears, "Are you supposed to be here today?" It's going to be on his tombstone.
Yeah, exactly.
If you get tired of it, then you got to re-energize and remember why you got into this, because it's part of the deal. There's actors that would kill to have a catchphrase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have several.
Yeah, I wish I had a catchphrase. I think my catchphrase is "Sorry, I'm late." I don't know. But 37 is my new favorite number. And I'm excited because I just turned 36 this year, and I was bummed out I wasn't a year older. Because like for that year, I'm gonna be like, yeah.
No,
And then 38 rolls around.
Don't try to make it any faster than it is, because it starts to go
Bless you.
fast. Okay.
Enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my gosh. No, people are messaging me like, where's the link to this channel? How do I get to it? I'm like, I posted it.
Yeah, people need to kind of go searching for it. Yeah, I did the same thing, just prior to us coming on here.
Well, you know what? I wanted to just take a moment and say thank you again for both of you and just being so gracious with your time. Steven and I are really legitimately huge fans, and it means a lot that both of you have sat down with us for 45 minutes and just shared a little bit about your time with both Clerks and Clerks 3. We again just want to tell you how much we've loved this new movie, and again how excited we were to see both of you be a part of that. So
absolutely,
thank you. You're my first interview since the movie.
Oh, opened. We are. Wow.
Nice. We broke the ground.
Yes.
Listen, you know what it is? It's symbiotic in the greatest of ways. What we do doesn't matter a hang without the folks who dig it. Right. It all works together. It's a big circle. We all need each other. The artists, without people who support what you do, I'd still do it, but I'd be doing it in my studio basement or on a street corner or something. But the supporters are just as important as the people making the art, more so.
Yeah. And I got to say thanks again, Scott, because you are a part of every single episode we do, because our little intro there.
I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard the music. I was like, hey, he's playing my track. That's great.
Yeah, we've played that every episode since we started doing video, I think, which we're on. This is episode 111, which I think is kind of funny. And I did not plan this. It's 111 Clerks 3.
Right. 3.
It's just so awesome. And
I know that really lined up. Yes.
And then another thing that wasn't really accidental. Marilyn, when you first came on the last time, it was episode 37.
Right.
Which wasn't, I mean, I got close to it and I was like, we got to keep the schedule going so this can be 37, but it wasn't planned out. Like when she comes on, it will be 37. It just ended up that way.
I think that just tells me that it was meant to be.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was awesome. And every time I see, of course, everybody's like, oh, 37, huh? I mean, people, since Clerks 3 came out, people are posting pictures of convenience stores named Quick Stop in other places of the country. And of course, I had to share my story of when I lived in Tennessee for a year, and right across the border in Virginia, there was a convenience store that was called Quick Stop, and the store number was 37. So it was just one of those things. I sat out front of it and I was like, yeah.
I just want to say hi to everyone who's actually gone on, and hi, Shay, and everybody else that has been saying hi. And because we've just been so into our conversation, haven't been able to say hi back to anybody. So hi.
Yeah, I keep it in, so I don't see the conversation, folks. I'm sorry. I'd love every single one of you for tuning in. I just see these fine people on the screen. I don't have the conversation going on my screen right now.
I try to get in there and read some of them, but like so many good stories going on, I'm not gonna shut up. Let's hear what this guy wants to say.
I know, yeah, because it takes you out of listening as to what's kind of going on. So yeah, I hear you.
Oh wow, yeah. So apparently I have a precise calendar for the next 5 years. It's not exactly like that. I don't plan these things always. Initially, though, my goal when I had first episode was like Kevin Smith's going to be my guest on episode 37. Ha 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 ha. maybe episode 370, we'll see what happens. But
Yeah.
who knows if he's not off making some magic again, which I hear he's doing or wants to do a Tusk 2.
Really?
Yeah, I heard that too.
I read that. Yeah.
You know, it'll be interesting to see what it is that he does do next, because I do know that he wanted to do Mallrats. And then it was basically Liz Destro telling Kevin, it's like, well, you know, I think we can get Mallrats done if we do Clerks 3 first. And it was basically Lionsgate, who had the distribution for Jay and Silent Bob reboot, that said, it's like, hey, a lot of people like their hard copies of this. So why don't we do, what else do you have that's Jay and Silent Bob? So, and here you go.
Yeah.
And that brought Clerks 3, and maybe the Clerks 3 success with the DVDs, and here's Mallrats, and then here's Clerks Yoga Hosers 2, yay. Maybe not that one, but you know. I mean, I would watch it.
It'll be interesting to see what he does next, and you know, I don't know, hopefully.
Maybe it'll be not Red State. Sorry, I was still thinking about it earlier. Maybe it'll be Tusk 200, like Tusk 2.
Yeah.
And then maybe somebody else will be walrus with him, and they play tennis, and they go on adventures together. I don't know. It's hard to say.
I mean, I'd be very interested to see, okay, how does he do Mallrats? The second installment, because, you know, malls are kind of like a dying breed right now, I feel. So many here have empty stores, and there are some that are just, they continue to be thriving, and others where it's just like there's hardly anybody there. So
it would need to be like it would need to be Mallrats set in an Amazon warehouse.
Yeah.
You know, if you remember the Brody character, obviously Jason Lee, he was like king of that mall. Like, he was Mr. Mall. I could see him fighting to get his mall not closed down, maybe.
Yeah.
Could be you know, but anything with Jason Lee is going to be great. That cat is amazing.
Oh my gosh. I'm still mad that they canceled My Name is Earl. That show was phenomenal with Jason Lee.
Great
and then Ethan Suplee. Oh. And everybody loved Ethan Suplee's little cameo in Clerks 3. I did not expect that. I mean, it's just 2 seconds.
Spoiler!
I mean, sorry, but I had to say it. I mean, I didn't have to say it, but, you know, Morgan Freeman comes in and kills everybody. Now you don't know what I'm lying about.
Right.
I don't feel so bad. You know, like, we lived with Marilyn and I had to live with some pretty heavy duty stuff for a year. There were things I was afraid to tell my partner, just because you just never know what might be blurted out. And because I don't want to be the one responsible for giving away something important, you know?
Yeah.
You know,
I didn't tell anything to my family.
You talk about needing to speak to somebody afterwards because it's so emotional. All I ever got was the Julie scene. I went to the costume fitting. They said something at the costume fitting to allude to something I didn't know about. Something really heavy. I was shocked. So much so, driving home, I had to pull over and I was crying.
Wow.
And I had to call my fiance just to talk to somebody, because that's how intense what I just found out at the costume fitting was. So, yeah, this movie's a roller coaster.
I remember you actually texted me. I think you texted me and had to talk to somebody who actually knew what was kind of going on.
Yeah,
I remember that.
This is really happening, huh? It's so intense, just so intense, you know.
Yeah, oh, I was gonna go somewhere with. I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, remember.
That sounds like me.
When we were at the 25-year anniversary Stash event, there were some people who had actually gotten to screen the new film, and so it was awesome to be able to talk to somebody who. It's like you can relate, and it's like, now you know how we feel when we can't say anything.
Right. Well, I think that's a part that we don't realize is how hard it is for you guys to keep the secret for us. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shay.
Cancer merchant.
Oh,
You know, it's funny. Of course, I get that a lot, but it's Dante that's the cancer merchant.
true.
Right. I think you
True.
yell it out, or you incite the
Right.
people to yell it
I'm
out. So,
accusing him of being a cancer merchant,
right.
but I don't mind getting that label either. But
As long as they don't start throwing
Plus,
cigarettes
yeah.
at you.
he that character is such a not very likable, and yet the fans have been wonderful to me. So go figure.
You know, Scott, you've heard. I'm sure you've heard that saying about there being no small parts, only small actors, right? What do you think it is about what you bring to the character of the Chuli's gum guy that has made you so endearing?
Oh, it's not me. It's the writing. That scene was written specifically for the Chuli's gum guy to be bombastic, big, crazy. So in the first 5 minutes, you got to kind of have an idea where the film's going.
Right.
Right? Yeah, because right up until then, not a heck of a lot happens. You don't know what's going on. But then all of a sudden, you got this lunatic, throwing a fit and starting a riot. Oh my God, this is going to be a pretty crazy ride. So I was blessed as a character actor. I always say, if you didn't get one of the lead roles in that film, the Chuli's guy or maybe Rick Derris were some of the cherry roles to get. And I didn't know it at the time. I just went in there and gave it 110%. But I can't understand why so many people are so as nice to that character as they are. I think because also too, when Veronica outs him and his way, there's a real little sheepish look. He's completely deflated. So I guess maybe you see that and it's a little humiliating. But in the new one, the fun of the cameo is it's another actor's dream gig, kind of. Even though it is just a cameo, it's a sweet gag, I think, for an actor.
To some degree, I kind of wished I was able to recreate that scene, that fire extinguisher scene. But in retrospect, there was no way that I was going to be able to do that because. Here's a little spoiler, not of the film, but of backstory. In June, I fell, and it was a hard fall on my knee.
Oh, wow.
And I was having some issues with the knee, and I went to urgent care. They didn't take yes, I did have x-rays taken, and they're like, oh yeah, no, it's all fine. It's like, but they wanted to give me a cortisone shot, and I was like, no, that's okay. But it was still bothering me for quite a bit up until before I left LA to go shoot. Wow. And I called up a friend of mine saying, it's like, what's a torn meniscus feel like? And so she was telling me, and I'm like, okay, that's kind of sounds like what I've got. And I'd already gone through the process of the doctors, but out here it takes a while to get the approvals that you need and the referrals that you need. So I went to my chiropractor, got a cortisone shot in my knee before I left because of certain scene that I was going to be doing in a vehicle and not knowing how that was going to pan out. And then once we were done shooting, I was back at my sister's, who still lives in Jersey. I went down 2 steps, turned around, and my knee popped.
Wow.
And so sure enough, once I got back to LA and had an MRI, it's like I had a torn meniscus. So I would not have been able to jump down from the refrigerator, even though there was a step, like when I originally did it, it would not have been as easy to do that. And that pop that I felt at my sister's house would have been done earlier and really kind of put the kibosh on me doing some things.
It would have been much less graceful.
Stunt double.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So stunt Veronica.
Right, we do. Bring this up, Veronica. Are you, just for the record, are you doing better now?
Yeah, I mean, I had the torn meniscal surgery in February. I'm still doing PT because it was almost a year. It was at least 8 months before I had the surgery. So me kind of compensating walking kind of messed up my hip flexor on the other leg. So still doing the PT and but better. You know, it just takes a while.
Well, we're glad that what you experienced didn't show up in your performance.
Thank you.
You know, so I'm glad that you're able to still, you know, carry through with that.
Fun stories. And once we can actually talk about what the scenes are, then we can even give even more awesome backstories.
I can't wait for everyone to go out and see this movie, and then we won't have to worry about spoilers, and they can just know that, you know, all the lengths we've kept to try to, you know, not say anything we shouldn't. They'll finally understand why.
Yeah, and we're not very far from that, because I know the UK just got the movie, so that's cool. I know there's a lot of people in UK that are in the Facebook groups that we all interact with, and it's like they're excited to see the movie. I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that almost a week ago, but I'm so glad you're getting to watch. I'm genuinely excited that people are getting to watch it, even though I'm not watching it with them. I'm like, yes, I'm so happy for you, but I'm also going to be so sad for you in like 2 hours.
I know there's a lot of other people like in Australia, Canada, and you know, outside of the UK area that are, you know, really wanting the film to go out to them, and I don't know whether it is or isn't, but I certainly hope that it does become doable before it goes on streaming.
And hopefully, yeah, because the theater experience is definitely better than to, you know, get a disc and put it in or stream it.
Because it really is like, okay, so I went to the Fathom event, and sure enough, you know, it's like a lot of those people were my friends. But going to the Fathom event was just like night and day from the convenience tour.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But still great.
No, yeah.
It's just the energy is just so different.
Right. And there's no energy when you're home alone, like watching, because that's half the experience is the people around you that you don't know. Like, I almost wanted to hug the guy next to me, like, it'll be okay, buddy. You know? Never seen the guy before, but
you make friends in strange new places, I guess.
So many sniffles in the theater, like you could hear the sounds. I'm like, oh my gosh. Oh.
Yep. Take tissues.
Right.
Take several tissues.
Take an entire box. You'll need it. You know, I think one of the words that I had written down on my notes before coming on the show here tonight was the phrase that everything comes full circle. And I think for me, that was what has been kind of resonating in my head since I saw it on Tuesday, is how, you know, the movie keeps kind of returning back to its origin, back to where it started. That it's all one big homage to the original story. And I think that's what's really beautiful about it. It's what I think is so clever about it, that it just pays like a perfect tribute to the original, in a way that is, I think, nostalgic and beautiful and I think memorable. I mean, it's one of those things that especially at least for me and Steven, I think for many others, is what's going to make it lasting and memorable.
Yeah, when it comes to that part of homage, that's where I lose it, because it's I'm gonna lose it now.
Oh, no.
It's just so very nostalgic, and so you kind of start reflecting on that, back on that life. So and like all the amazing friends that I've made, and seriously, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. It's like they're all family. And, you know, some of us aren't as close as, you know, just like in regular family. It's like you're closer to some people than you are to others and stuff like that. But still, they're family.
I know I say, too, at the very end of the credits, when we see that touching little tribute to Lisa, that really meant a lot.
You're really going to get me going.
I didn't want to get you going more, but I really had to say it because I became pretty good friends with her through Facebook. I never got the pleasure of meeting her in person, but it really, when we lost her, it really kind of knocked me down a little bit, because I had several conversations with her about life, about just somebody, and just some dorky guy that loved the movie once, and then here she is talking to me about all this stuff. So that really,
that's
sweetheart.
That's one of the other things too. you know, I start thinking about, it's like, oh, well, you know, it would have been nice if she were part of it. And I mean, in some respects, yes, she is. And I always feel like, you know, those that have passed on are always watching and stuff like that. But still, it would have been nice to have her physically there and be part of it all.
Yeah, really would have been.
Chris.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people that share that sentiment.
All right, stop making me cry.
Yeah, no, I need to stop. I'm getting myself.
Right.
I'm like,
we're all serious now. No more of that.
But listen, those are good tears in the
They
sense.
are.
Yeah.
they are.
What happens completely heartbreaking. I had been in touch with her a few weeks actually before it happened because it was fairly sudden. I have an electric bass that everybody signed, and I was going to see Lisa to sign it because I wanted to put it up for auction for my animal charity. And then that happened, and it was awful. And I lost interest in trying to do anything with that bass, which is sad because it's covered in autographs, but she was going to be the last one, you know? Mm. Oh, it's hard that we lost her so young.
You know what? I still feel like you should do it anyway. And this is probably the perfect time to.
Yeah, you know, I was actually going to talk to Mike Zapsik, who runs the stash now, about putting it, just having it. It's a really nice showpiece. It's a really cool, it's got Clerk stickers. Everybody signed it. It's a cool looking thing.
Yeah.
It might just be a nice showpiece for a while in the stash. Just something people could take pictures with, and maybe somebody makes a nice offer. You could put the money to the animal charity or whatever. But listen, we've been blessed with so much from this movie. It informed everything in my professional and even personal life since it came out. You know, I mean, my life I could literally view before Clerks and after Clerks. It's like two different chunks of my life.
Yeah, it's amazing how certain things in our lives are pivotal, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I don't see Clerks or those types of movies. I don't ever hear a podcast really, because that led into Kevin talking. He talks so much that like, oh, that's great. Talk for a living. And so I listened to those for years, and here I am now. We're all together talking about those things, and it still blows my mind. I'm like, wow, I can't believe we're sitting right here talking about this.
I know. Well, again, it has really been a real pleasure for us to have you guys on the show. And again, thank you for your time. I know that Stephen and I have really been thankful just for you guys to just speak with us and share with us. And you know, again, we feel just really blessed that you guys have joined us. And again, we love the movie, and we really want to just help to celebrate it for all that it is, and want to encourage people, if they haven't already seen it, to go out and watch it and tell their friends to go out and watch it, and all that. So again, we want to thank you guys for Go ahead,
You're
Stephen.
welcome. Thank you for having me and Marilyn.
Yeah. Thank you. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully soon we can, in a few months or so, we can come back once everybody knows the details and really dive into, other things.
That would be fantastic.
Absolutely.
That would be fantastic. All right. Well, you guys have a great night. Thank you so much.
Too. Thank you. And thank everybody who's out there watching and tuning in for all your support. We love you. You're the best. You really are.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thanks again.